Welcome back to the Morning Blend. When Prince Charming turns into Prince Harming, it can be hard to stop the cycle.
That's right. And today our focus is on emotional abuse in intimate relationships. Expert Amy Lewis-Bear has written this book. It's called From Charm to Harm, a guide to spotting and stopping emotional abuse. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. I think this is a really important topic because it can start when you're a teen.
Yes.
And you're in your first relationships and you need to learn how to spot different behaviors that can become harmful to your emotional health, right?
Well, that's so true. And, you know, we do math and science and reading in high school and in college and all these great subjects, but nobody teaches us how to have relationships. And so a lot of us get involved with people who are very controlling. Yeah. Sometimes they have a deep-seated need to control and they don't even realize it. And so we get involved in these relationships and things go wrong and you don't know if it's you or the person you're involved with, and it's very confusing. So you have to know what these emotional abuse tactics are. And that's why I wrote my book.
You're a psychotherapist. You've
Yes.
treated a lot of people who probably are experiencing abuse, emotional abuse in a relationship. Have you ever experienced it personally?
I have, and that's why I have sort of the inside track, because abuse is psychological manipulation. Now we're talking emotional abuse here. Physical abuse is something different, can be something very different. We have to distinguish those two.
Do they always go hand in hand?
No, they don't.
Okay.
There can be emotional abuse in a relationship, and the abusive person will never lay a hand on the other person violently. So you have to distinguish those two, because a lot of people feel, and let's say the woman is the one who's being controlled, they think, well, he's got great qualities. You know, he's a good father, he's kind, he's generous, he's not abusive. But you know what? He is abusive if he's trying to control your thoughts, your thinking, your feeling, your behavior, and he's robbing you of your health and your happiness.
Why charm to harm? Because we think of someone who's charming as, you know, a prince, as we kind of mentioned.
Yes. Or a princess.
Or a princess.
Yes.
Are they always bad people, or are they good people who do bad things?
Well, people who are controlling, and that's what abuse is all about, it's about power. So people who are controlling have good qualities, so that can be very deceptive. In the beginning, when you meet someone, it's like the Garden of Eden. You know, you just think he's interesting, he's fun, he's attentive, he's loving, even dazzling, and you think, oh, I found the perfect guy. But what he's thinking is, oh, I found a woman who's going to meet my every need and have none of her own. And so when she starts having needs of her own, he in his mind, because he needs to control her, how dare she have needs of her own? And that's when the trouble starts.
How do the tactics work? Because sometimes it can be subtle, right?
The tactics can be very subtle, and that's one of the reasons why I write a lot about that in my book. I have over 80 emotional abuse tactics. Now, some emotional abuse tactics are obvious. Lying, cheating, constant nitpicking, criticism, embarrassing you in front of other people, making you feel bad about yourself. Those are more obvious, calling you names. But some psychological manipulation where, for instance, you think you're having a meaningful conversation to resolve an issue, and afterwards you're confused and you don't really understand. There's been contradictory statements, so you don't really understand it, and you end up feeling empty afterwards and bad about yourself, and nothing gets resolved. That's very tricky and hard to spot.
How about the people who have someone like this in their life? What does it say about them? Because I think so often you think, well, the person who allows this has got to be very insecure or whatnot, and I don't think that's the truth.
That's not necessarily the truth. There are some very smart women who get involved in abusive relationships because it is subtle, your earlier point. It creeps into the relationship. And so it does have to do with, it can have to do with self-esteem. Also, it can do with sort of a lack of good, strong personal boundaries, tolerating behaviors that you really shouldn't tolerate, tolerating disrespect. So people who allow themselves to be disrespected, they can get involved in emotionally abusive relationships. But it's also about education. You have to know what to look for.
If you're in an emotionally abusive relationship and you spot it, is the idea to leave it, or is it something that can be fixed?
Well, I'm here to give hope and help. There are some ways you can help yourself and your partner if they're willing to be helped. First of all, you have to lay down some consequences. This isn't working, you're disrespecting me, and I'm not going to stay in the relationship if you don't stop.
What if they make fun of that?
They very well could, and often do, because people who are emotionally abusive, often they live in an inner world where the facts don't figure in and they feel justified. They don't see their behavior as abuse, and so it's hard for them to get what's going on, and they feel justified about controlling.
Who do you think should pick up this book? Is it if you question that if you're in the right kind of relationship, or
Yes.
parents even to spot it for their children?
This book is important because it's important for young women just starting out in relationships, dating, for young men as well, because women can be abusive. Abuse can happen between any two people. I just write about intimate relationships. I would read this book at any age, even women who have already been dating, who their relationships aren't working out and they're getting involved with men or partners who don't treat them well. I would say read this book because it spells it out. There are true stories in there, there are illustrations, there are definitions. It has assessments also. Are you in an emotionally abusive relationship? How are you contributing to that? And and also what to do about it.
I think it's fantastic. I want to make sure everybody's got your website so they can find out how to get your book. It's called heartwisecounseling.com to get the book From Charm to Harm. That's where you can find Amy Lewis Bear's book. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Great
Thank
meeting
you.
you too.
Appreciate it.
Later today's